So let's get into
But you're like the only person I think who's seen it.
Yep.
Yeah, I made it clear in my video on it. I'm not subjecting myself to that, but you did. You did, Paul. And from the thumbnail, it was obvious that you expected a lot of flack for liking the first episode. But then again, you made up for all of that with your with your end of series review. So it's all forgiven. So I'm going to just begin with a leading question, because you've observed that we are now suddenly in a phase where people are rooting for failure rather than success. Did you find that this was the case when in your initial positive review of the pilot episode?
So it was semi-positive, but again, anyone who saw the review and not just poo-pooed it or dismissed it based on the fact that I said, there was some joy to be had in it. Right. I also tried to come at it as an executive in charge of production, and if this one single episode landed on my desk, what would be my thoughts about it? And I was fairly positive about the fact that pilots are really difficult to do, and most of them struggle to try to find what their center is and what the show's about, and introducing strange actors that you've never seen before. I mean, again, familiarity of an actor means a lot. And pretty much no one here had any familiarity except for Minnie Driver and her weird Botox head and forehead. And you had the guy who was playing Dandelion in the first Witchers. And then after that, everyone was a complete stranger. So that's a very difficult thing to do. You've got to do a lot of heavy lifting. And there were some things that the writer did that I really enjoyed from a writing perspective, and that is called Chekhov's loaded gun, where you set something up and then you fire it off. Mm-hmm. Now, he did, I thought, a fairly good job in that first show, just executing that we found out about the girl in the pub that had visions, and then later on her, we saw what her vision was going to be. That's loading the gun and firing it. That's great. But then what happened was with the subsequent shows, I did that analysis on the first one. That's what made it a good, reasonable pilot. But the problem is that on the subsequent shows, he kept loading the gun and firing it really in quick succession, as opposed to letting things go. That, Lenny Henry is trying to, as the wizard, he was terrible in the show, just horrible. He was trying to take over the kingdom, but he took over the kingdom in the first episode, as opposed to the Empress killing her brother, killing her sister, and then letting her enjoy a bit of time as the evil Empress, with Lenny Henry, plotting behind her back. That got resolved in the first show. And I went, okay, this is now getting stupid. Too many things were being set up and solved or executed way too quickly. And that happened all the way through for the subsequent 2, 3, and third show. And there was so much talking, so little stuff, happening, very little action. The troops from that, were basically NPCs from a video game. They got killed, and then all the guys got dressed up, and again, all the blood was wiped off their fake armor. Then they all got moved over to the next scene, where then they got slaughtered again. They almost were like computer generated NPCs. The show was terrible. I mean, I still was okay with the first episode. I had a problem with the lead. Again, you had this individual that I didn't think had any kind of charisma and wasn't particularly exotic. So, I mean, this is going to be a weird thing to say. We've seen a lot of people of color in these shows, and we kind of complain about race substitution and gender substitution. I don't really care, but there's a wide variety of people within each category, whether it's white, Asian, black, whatever. But I have found that I'm going to get into huge trouble for this. I don't know whether I should continue. I find that Hollywood tends to pick certain kinds of people of color rather than go for something super exotic. Like there's just such a wide range of interesting color and facial features of people from the African continent, for instance. I forgot the name of the one actress. Her name is Lupo, or I'm sorry,
Lupita.
So she is super exotic looking. Grace Jones, very exotic.
Very exotic, yeah.
So if Grace Jones was the lead person of female color, I'd go, I'm all in. The problem is I didn't know who this woman was. She looked kind of generic. So did all the white people. They all look generic. And you can't do that.
And the settings and the backgrounds and the designs and everything else. Because I didn't see it, but what I saw from the trailer, just like Willow, just like the Wheel of Time, it looks super generic, like everything else, completely lacking its own very specific mise-en-scene, for lack of a better
they had
word.
The cutaways to the vistas were beautiful. It looked like it was Iceland. I don't know what it was, but it looked really neat. But then they would cut back to forests that looked like everything that you've seen before.
Yeah.
So, I'm fine with I'm okay with colorblind casting. The problem is if everything employs that, then everything looks the same. Like, they could have at least made one whole tribe Asian, one whole tribe black, one whole tribe white, and then at least I'd be able to keep my scorecard. I'd understand like who's playing what, but I don't know who was doing what, because everyone was diverse in the same way. I don't know who was who. That's not the way. If they're complaining about these shows need to reflect life, it doesn't mean it's reflecting LA. That's the problem. Is that I want to see diversity, but I want to see it diverse in the same way that when I travel to a different country, I'm in Taiwan, I see Taiwanese people. Okay, that's how diversity works. It doesn't.
Yeah, but if you're a casting director that doesn't leave Los Angeles,
well, that's the problem. Yeah,
you have people in positions that have no world experience. They have no life experience.
There you go.
Yeah, and we've had this conversation before, Paul. That leads into kind of the stuff that we end up there at the end of the day. Is just it's like you said, we end up with Los Angeles. That's what we have.
Yep.
That's not it.
It's just they end up with something very generic and not very unique and interesting. So the show's really badly written. By the end of it, it was terrible.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know going in that this was originally supposed to be 6 episodes and got shortened to 4?
No, I did not know.
Okay. Do you think that also played into the fact that the Chekhov's gun was being reloaded every 15 seconds in the show? Or
no, that could have been done very differently, because even at the very end, where Lenny Henry as the chief wizard at the very end, close to the very end, finally, though this might this might have played into it, where he finally got the chaos magic. He got everything. He was going to be the most powerful character in the entire series. And then in the same episode, or I think, the other wizard pops in and then zaps him, and then they blow up the obelisk. And I went, okay, well, that fantastic magic didn't last long. The problem is nothing happened. Like, I could have actually shortened what was there down to 2 episodes, because there was so much yakking.
Well, but again, that's the thing. Now it's the sit around table, talk about your feelings, walk in the hallway, talk about your feelings.
That's what it was.
And if you can write brilliant dialogue, like if you're Aaron Sorkin or somebody like that, then that's not a problem. The problem is none of these people have the ability to write fantasy dialogue, number one, and two, they sound like Valley kids, right? When they're talking to each other, and it's like, you guys are, it's troubling. It's troubling to me.
The dialogue in Rings of Power was worse, because they tried to make it poetic, and it was horrible. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where, as someone asked George R. Martin gave him some advice, says, what do I do with this scene? And they said, it's kind of lagging. He said, Justice, send in a dragon. Okay. Now, the point is, there was the kingdom had no surrogates. They didn't have the Nazgul. the people were not in a constant state of anxiety and fear and fighting for their lives. They had the one goal, which was to get back to the badly CGI palace, and that was it.
You in other words, you're only playing out on one level. You're not playing out like as a, this is a universe, this is a universal crisis. This is a global crisis. This is a local crisis. This, and that's how epics are built. They're built off of different levels of crises that are all happening at the same time. And it builds dynamic tension, right? And when you alleviate one of those tensions, there's still more to deal with, and there's another one that comes along. I mean, that's how great games are written. It's how great stories are written. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, you mean you had the company of adventurers, and they actually were kind of interesting, but they should have separated them off, and each had their own goal, and each had their own problem to deal with. But yeah, the show was terrible. I'm actually shocked at how horrible it ended up being, and nobody there should be complaining about us complaining about the show. I certainly gave it a shot.
I have a question about that. How could this happen? How could the Netflix executives have taken a look at these scripts, these dailies, and decided, yeah, this is fine? Or could it be that when they did that is when it got cut from 6 to 4 episodes?
They obviously knew something was going on if they cut it from 6 to 4. Obviously, they knew something was up. But if I got those scripts ahead of time, I would have ripped them to shreds. I wouldn't have let any of this should be shot the way it was shot.
Culture, what say you? Could I be onto something there with my wild speculation?
I think you are, because we'd already heard that when Netflix was going through its trial of losing subscribers for the first time ever in a decade, that they were pulling the authority of people to greenlight projects and things like that on the cusp of some of these poorly received shows, like making it to the public and being decimated by not just the fans, but the critics alike. And I think they saw this thing coming, but they have to double down on this world. They have this one IP that they control in The Witcher, and they put all their eggs into Miss Hissrich's basket. And I think that was a mistake. But I think that they definitely saw a problem there, and they did pull it from 6 to 4 for a reason.
Because it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was, and again, this is hard, but easy. Yeah. When I was in LA, and I don't think it's that different now, is the best thing you can do is put together a charismatic bunch of actors, and you just pray to hell that they're going to carry the show, because you're going to be shooting 24 shows and a third of them are going to be garbage.
You realize, and I did a video on this yesterday, Paul, that Netflix did 439 original shows last year alone.
Wow.
That's just in the US market.
Wow. You mean episodes, including everything
No. Shows. They added to 400 and whatever it is unique shows. Yeah, it's insane. And overall, I think everything streamed domestically in the United States and Canada on any of the major streaming services, the 16 that exist. That there were 2,024 shows in all across streaming services domestically and regular televised programming. 2,024 unique shows.
Yeah, who can
only goes to show that no one read those scripts in advance. They only saw the dailies or the early edits afterwards, and when they did, must have been when they said, "The hell is this?" and cut them down from 6 to 4 episodes.
When I saw this show, my first thought was, this is exactly what Hissrich wanted. She hated the Cavill Witchers. This was the Witcher she wanted.
Yeah,
female-led, brave and strong,
and representative of her postcode in LA.
Right. Yeah. And she hated, heading up a show that had Cavill in it. This was the show she wanted. Cavill just got in the way. That was my feeling watching this show.
Yeah, and it showed. I mean, it really did. And sometimes, when you get what you wish for, it's not the best thing.
Well, it's indicative of what we were talking about earlier, right? It's when these people have absolutely no desire to really be a part of said franchise, they're just using it as a stepping stone for themselves, for either their career or to push an agenda, what have you. And in this case, it's probably both.
Well, I mean, the Witcher, Stankowski's, Stravinsky's, God, I forgot his name. His books are very male, although there's. You're going to work on the culture.
I was trying to work on the name, and now I lost it too.
Yeah. So you'll have to look it up. The books are very, male oriented with some good females in there, as we know, they were included in the game. But it's also unbelievably violent. That the level of violence has not really showed up in the TV series, whether they're trying to aim it for a different group, I don't know, but no, they've completely cocked up this idea.
And the chat got to it before I did. Sapkowski.
So, yes, and is rich. It is rich with lore. The shows aren't even barely touching the lore in the books. There's so much in the books, just even on the different kinds of potions and how they needed to be made, and how you just, the Witcher doesn't just pull out a potion and then drink it and then becomes the thing he needs to become. He's got different potions, so he could be up against a specific villain and not have the right potion on him.
Yeah.
That's not in any of the shows. That is fantastic world building. Oh crap. Okay. I didn't mix up.
Basically, he's like, oh crap, I brought the anti-ogre spray, but I'm up against a troll.
There you go. And that is in the books. It's not, I mean, and that's really good Iron Man-y, Spider-Man-y kind of thing. Oh, I've run out of web,
I don't have any more goo.
Basically, there's gear porn in the source material, and they let that out in the Netflix series.
Yes, there's lots of gear porn.
I have one last question though, because this I really want to know. When you get to the end, did you find that it was anticlimactic?
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be seeing like this cataclysmic event coupled with the birth of the first Witcher, or the creation of the first Witcher, right?
And the birth of humans.
Yeah.
And the fact that we see Ciri briefly, the wimpy wizard, who I liked, actually. I really liked the nerdy wizard, sees Ciri as she is when she's youngish. I went, okay, how are they making that connection? Yeah, I missed out both the creation of the Witchers and also the what are the bad guys? The Black March, or I can't remember stuff anymore. There's a group of, there's an evil entity in The Witcher that it's all supposed to explain that evil entity also. It was just a dumb show.
Yeah.
It's too bad. All that IP. And my biggest concern is now they're just knocking them down and ruining them forever. I don't know, like, anyone with any kind of IP should be giving it to Hollywood.
Nope. No, unless they retain complete creative control, last word on everything. Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
I mean, I think of and my brain is going, the assassin with the snark, Deadpool.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's see whether he can control the Deadpool IP.
I don't know how you get away from the merc with a mouth. I mean, that is Ryan. If Ryan actually has been able to exert the full control that we've been led to believe, then I think that film is in good shape. But they're not quite ready to shoot it yet. I think they'll start shooting it like when we get towards spring.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So it's too bad. I mean, Wheel of Time has been ruined. Witcher has been ruined. Star Wars,
Star Trek.
Marvel. All of this has just been turned into garbage.
Yeah.